we are used to what? People telling us like, you're amazing, you are awesome, like you're so special and unique, and you just have to believe that you're special and unique and super amazing, and then you'll go out and do all of these amazing things in the world. What the science actually shows us, what the research actually shows us, is like that psychology does not work. Not only does it not inspire us to go out and do things, it actually keeps us kind of locked into more of like this fear of failure.
Welcome to the Prosper Brief, the podcast where we explore bold ideas shaping the future of the food service and hospitality industry. I am your host, Jeremiah Wynn, Content and Marketing Manager here at Prosper, and today I'll be with Justine Job, the Vice President of Business Development at Prosper, and we have a special guest, Liz Bohannon, founder of Seco Designs and author of Beginner's Pluck. Stay tuned. Attention emerging leaders in food service and hospitality. Are you ready to accelerate your career? If so, join us for the Accelerate Conference on October 22nd through the 24th at the Omni Hotel in Dallas, Texas. Gain insights from over 1,000 collective years of business and leadership experience. Engage in more than 30 focused breakout sessions. Be inspired by 5 empowering general sessions featuring industry experts. Don't miss this opportunity to build valuable connections and elevate your leadership talent to give your business the competitive edge it deserves. Register today at prosperaccelerate.com. Welcome, Liz and Justine, to the Prosper Brief. Justine, obviously you've hosted the Prosper Brief multiple times. Liz, you are new to the show, so we would love just to get to know more about you. So for this episode, it's going to be a lot more personal and just about our personal journeys. So I think it'll be great just for us to start off with all of us sharing different things of how we got here to where we are. So we can start with Liz and then Justine, and then I'll follow.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me. I have loved every interaction that I've gotten to have with the Prosper team, and looking forward to this and then more in the future. So thanks so much for having me on the show. So where do we begin? I grew up in the Midwest. I studied journalism, and I was really interested in kind of big global issues, specifically inequality for women and girls living in developing economies. And after I graduated with my journalism degree, I actually moved to East Africa. I moved to Uganda. I did not have a job. I did not have a plan. I did not have an idea of what I was going to do or how I was going to make money, but I just wanted to go and learn and kind of build relationships and really see kind of from the ground perspective, what are the issues and challenges facing women in developing economies. And long story short, I ended up starting a company. To create employment for really academically gifted girls in between high school and university. So in Uganda, there's a 9-month gap in between high school and college. And what was happening was these really academically gifted, high potential young women were testing into college. But then during this 9-month gap, they were moving back home to their villages and facing a ton of social pressure to get married, usually against their will, and to not continue their educational journeys. And so I started this company as a way to create community and connection to keep these young women together, but also doing something where they could earn money towards their future college degrees. And then I came back home to the US and tried to figure out, how does one build a business, and specifically a fashion business, because we were making sandals. And that launched me really into the next 15 years of my career as a founder, CEO, entrepreneur, and ended up growing this company into a international, literally, we have partners on almost every continent, fashion brand. In the process, I became really interested and convicted and committed to creating cultures of community and collaboration and connection. I think for me, my global experience at a pretty young age, early on in my adulthood, was very enlightening for me. I think a lot of people, especially when like a young American moves to Africa, there's a lot of talk about culture shock, right? And I think what we actually mean by that is people are really poor and it's going to be shocking. It's true. And also, I think I experienced this other kind of culture shock where I was like, oh my gosh, like people live very differently here than they do in America. And what I mean by that is the level of social health, connection, community, dependence on one another. And as I continued to travel, mainly as an entrepreneur, kind of building companies and communities in, like I said, almost every continent across the globe, it became clearer and clearer to me, like, oh, America is the one that is not normal in this context. And so I became really, really interested in just kind of the principles and philosophies and practices that grow us in the realm of social health and community and connection. And then coming back home to the US and going, what's keeping us from doing that here? Like, there's nothing inherently, exotic about these principles. We should be able to live these out in like modern day mainstream America. And then really turned both my business and my personal life into kind of a social experiment around how we kind of build dense networks of support, specifically in America, in the midst of what the Surgeon General has called an epidemic of loneliness and isolation. So I believe that this conversation and experiment is really more important than ever.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, no, that's a lot. I love that. And there's a lot I want to get into. But first, Justine, do you want to tell us about how you got here to where we are today?
I mean, I think, Jeremiah, you should probably follow her because mine is all about survival and a corporate journey. I don't have anything as moving and touching. But yeah, so I went to Washington State University, graduated in 2009 among the recession. So was forced to obviously get my first time job. I was selling phone lines and internet door to door, knocking on 50 business doors a day, having to make 50 dials an hour. Yes. So for anyone out there that worked at CBeyond, we are bonded for life because it's like, it's like one of those things going through the darkest, most challenging careers. You become bonded with your people forever. So that was a very challenging career. Then I was working to get into medical sales, thought I would be very successful there, and found out I was working more and making less. So I was like, okay, I don't think I'm going to solve any problems here. So I then actually got into the tech industry, did 11 years at SAP Concur, and then recently made a transition to working for Prosper Forum. So into food service hospitality and trying to definitely make more of like a global impact with this organization of elevating food service hospitality. The people I've met in this industry, their journeys, their career growth has been so inspiring. So now I'm just hoping to be a little part of that significant journey.
That's great. No, that's a great story. And obviously along with that, there was personal pivots that you had in your life as well. We'll probably get into some things later, but for me, when it comes to just career wise, I remember when I was 8 years old, I told my dad I wanted to be a lawyer and a music producer. I have no idea why I would say that at 8 years old. I loved music and I loved playing the drums at that time. And I ended up going to college in 2011 and I studied music and English. And then after college, I worked in a music studio. I did some screenwriting. I eventually started a production company where I would do social media management, videography, photography. And within the last year, I started working with Prosper, and now I'm in the food service industry, creating content, doing podcasting, also creating content for the event. So, and I know that's me jumping. In between there, I also was a chaplain at a jail, and I was a teacher at one point for 3 years. I'm just so much more interested in you guys. Yeah, there's a lot of pivots, but I'm so much more interested in you guys. I don't want to like lose some questions that I have. So first for Liz, I have a question for you. It seems like, would you say that the main stabilizing factor in each of your pivots that you did in your life was really your passion? Because it seemed like what you studied in college and then you wanted to be a journalist and you go into Africa, these were things you were passionate about, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And specifically passion, I think, for people, for stories, and for connection. When I look back and I think about my very first move, so I worked in corporate for about 2 months is how long I lasted, Justine. I lasted about 2 months in my first job out of college. I also graduated into that recession. And so I know, I mean, we're bonded in our own way, having graduated into that economy. And so I was one of the lucky few, honestly, that got a job. And so my parents were horrified when it was like so hard to get a job. I got one. And then 2 months in, I'm like, peace out. I'm moving to Africa. And so, but when I think about that original move, it really was, it was this desire to, I felt like I knew a lot. I had a lot of knowledge about issues facing women and girls living in developing economies, but I didn't have any friends. I didn't have any community. I didn't have any relationships with people who actually had that lived experience. And so my initial move was very much so like, I want to build connection and community and relationships to kind of supplement this knowledge that I have. Then it was like, I had no interest in business. I didn't want to be an entrepreneur. Also, I didn't care about fashion. But for me, starting this company was really motivated by my passion for, I wanted these girls to be able to stay together. Like I saw what happened when like-minded, ambitious young women were like sharing space together and kind of spurring one another on. And then I also saw what happened when they went back home and were really isolated and didn't kind of have that peer community. And so it was less about the company and more about, okay, we got to keep them together. Let's just do something that can keep them together, living in community, and then earning an income so that they can continue on to college. And so, you know, I kind of say that I feel like even my path, it's like I'm a 15-year now entrepreneur, CEO, founder. For me, the company feels kind of more of like the Trojan horse for my real passion and the mission, which is community and connection. And that happens to be the tool that I've gotten to use over the course of my career to do those things.
So initially establishing a business to help build that community and connection, did you feel a fear of that responsibility and that undertaking of, because that's pretty vast. Like, was that something that you had to deal with?
Yes. Yeah, that's a great question, Jeremiah. And we could probably spend the rest of this hour doing like therapy with Liz because yes, I look back on my journey and I do feel like on the one hand, it was very valuable to feel that level of pressure because I felt like I couldn't give up, you know? And I think especially in your early, like, no, I'm not even gonna say especially in the early days, anybody knows that this like journey is so challenging that I think it is really helpful for us to have things that just feel like such a deep level of commitment and conviction that even when it is really, really challenging, we feel like we keep coming back to that. So I'm really grateful for it. I think it kept me in the game because I think I would have given up if I didn't have that. And I can see how, depending on how deep we want to get and honest and vulnerable on this show, there was a level of, I think I carried too much. There were times in my journey where I think I had too much of a sense of responsibility that really created an immense amount of stress and pressure because I cared so much about the vision and the mission. And it wasn't just about like, let's build a company so we can make money. And if we're not making money, then fine, let's not do it. It really was like, we're here to build connection and community and really create this kind of transformational experience. And so there were definitely times where I think I could have benefited from doing a little bit more introspection and self-work that I didn't do until later on in my career to kind of rightly place those things. How can we be really convicted and committed, but also have kind of a right ordered thinking about our kind of role and really even the degree and power that we have over any given situation.
I think that's the beauty of being young and like in your early 20s because you
Yeah.
don't even think about that stuff.
Yeah, totally.
You don't even think that far ahead. You're just thinking in the now. So even for Justine, so with you being in sales and you making the pivots that you made, what was the fuel that would cause you to, either desire growth or to want more or to, transition?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I feel like some things are kind of forced upon you. So actually, when I did make the transition from SAP Concur, I had actually had my fourth child. I went on maternity leave. And then when I came back, it was a bunch of the tech, downturns. So I unfortunately was a part of being let go in that downsizing. But it was such a blessing in disguise because I have been wanting to work with Luke and my dad, the co-founders of Prosper, for a very long time. We've dabbled in a number of projects, and it's just so hard to make a jump from a large corporate company with benefits and stability to go into this world of startup. And, I applaud Liz and anyone else that are entrepreneurs, because it is really like you're in the weeds. When I was in SAP Concur, I was very much in my lane and you would kind of pass things to people. And here it's like, no, you're doing a podcast today. Go get the equipment. You're online. So I think mine was like number of things of like, I'm motivated by fear of failure, but also ambitious of like, let's just keep moving. And then obviously when things are kind of forced upon you in my life, I think it's like, okay, great. God made that choice for me. So let's put our head down and see what we can make out of this new opportunity.
One thing that you just said that's interesting is the idea of fear of failure. So for me, growing up, I was always hyper aware of how not good I was at things. Like I was very skinny. I used to cry all the time. I had allergies, really puffy. I used to get kicked off the
I
drums. I was
can't
always
imagine that.
humiliated. Yeah, so I was so hyper aware of those things that for me, there really was no idea of failure because I was the failure already. I was like innately,
Oh,
like it's only
wow.
up from
Going
here,
deep.
Yeah. So for you guys, like for either of you guys, when it comes to fear of failure, what's the reality of the fail? Like, what is the worst that could happen? Taking a leap of faith, trying something new. What's the worst that can happen?
I'll let
Okay.
Liz take that.
Well, one, and I'm going to try really hard. I'm so much more interested in other people's stories. It's going to be hard. I'm like resisting the temptation, but I just want to clarify what you said, Jeremiah. Do you feel like it was like your view of yourself was so low that the fear of failure, what also didn't really matter because you already just felt like you were like, I have nothing to fall off. I'm on no platform. I have nothing to lose. And that actually created a sense of like possibility, courage, just like do the thing. Because is that kind of how that impacted you?
Absolutely. So like when you have no security, there's just nothing. So
Yeah.
there's only opportunity. It's literally always up from here. And I feel like so a lot of the things that I've done, I've been very ambitious and like failure was just normal. Like success
Okay.
and
Yeah.
taking good steps and things actually happening to me that was good. That actually was harder for me to adjust to, which is
Okay.
crazy. Yeah. So the
Okay, that
failure was
is
just like, okay, that's it.
that's so interesting. So I wrote a book called Beginner's Pluck. And the concept of beginner's pluck is all about kind of the stages of learning. And really if I had to sum it up, it's kind of like, okay, the whole world wants you to achieve expertise and mastery and success, and that's fine, that's great. But actually the problem is we kind of see that as like a stair step to ascend, like learning and leadership, and then we get to a certain point, we've experienced success, and then what happens for a lot of people is they actually kind of start to act out of a little bit of fear and protectionism of like, well, now I got it, I want to protect it, I want to be seen as the successful person, leader, whatever that I am, expert. And so what starts happening is they stop saying yes to new opportunities. They stop getting out of their comfort zone and really showing up in a space where they kind of suck a little bit in the beginning, which is so requisite to continuing to grow, right? Because it's like the world around us is changing more rapidly than ever. So if we're up here kind of just trying to protect our little position in the sandbox, is, like successful expert, like the world's going to move on and you're going to like, great, you've got your sandbox, but now it's pretty antiquated and like not a fun one to be in. So the book is all about teaching people how to channel their inner beginner, like get comfortable with basically being back at the beginning and seeing that less as this like horrible, demoralizing place to be, and more of like, congratulations, you kind of completed your previous learning journey. You dove back into the cycle of learning, and now you've started the cycle again. So one of the concepts in that book is this idea of owning your average. And listen, if you're like an inspirational, motivational speaker, which some people would describe me as, and you're telling people to own their average, it's very confusing to people, right? Because because we are used to what people telling us, like, you're amazing, you are awesome, like you're so special and unique, and you just have to believe that you're special and unique and super amazing, and then you'll go out and do all of these amazing things in the world. what the science actually shows us, what the research actually shows us is like that psychology does not work. Not only does it not inspire us to go out and do things, it actually keeps us kind of locked into more of like this fear of failure mentality. They did a study with kids, and in this study, they gave kids a set of puzzles basically to solve, and it was the same set of puzzles, but with one group of kids when they finished it, they told the kids, "Wow, you're amazing. Like you did really great on this puzzle. You must be really special and really smart." The other group of kids, they looked at their results and they were kind of like, great job. You must have tried really hard. It's obvious that you put a lot of effort into it. Then they gave the kids another set of puzzles and they did two things. One is they gave the kids a choice. They were like, you could do this easy set of puzzles or a more challenging set of puzzles. Which ones do you want? Well, the kids that were in the group that were told they were really special and smart and amazing, guess what puzzle set they chose? The easier one, right? Because now they kind of had this identity. Ooh, I'm smart. I'm special. I should take on a challenge where I'm more likely to succeed so I can keep being seen as smart and special. Whereas the kids who were just praised for showing up and for their effort actually chose the more challenging one. And then on top of that, they actually looked at the results, how successful they were in solving the puzzles, and found that the kids that were praised for their effort and just showing up, not for being special or unique or amazing, were actually the ones that performed lower. And so this whole concept of owning our average, it's like really touching on your lived experience, Jeremiah, but yours, you took it a step further of not. So the idea is if you just see yourself as pretty average, you actually start to cultivate more of a growth mentality of like, I have a lot to learn and what do I have to lose? If you start out seeing yourself as like especially gifted or smart or unique, you kind of have everything to lose. And so you don't want to try things because you don't want to look like an idiot. What's very interesting about this conversation is now I have this data set, which is, you know, a sample size of one in you, Jeremiah, to go, even if you see yourself as below average, it could still result in more of kind of this like growth mindset, which it seems like you carried with you throughout your life.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because like when you look at people who like peaked in high school, you know, some
Right.
like they looked good, their body, their genetics,
Yeah.
they were just amazing. And then they get to their mid-20s and they just start to decline.
Yeah.
It's like almost that same thing where like where is the drive? You know what I mean? So that's such an interesting, wow, that's such an interesting concept.
Well, I know, Liz, you spoke on our town hall, and I absolutely loved your statement of dream small.
Yeah.
Of like, there's less barriers, obviously the same concept of everything you're saying here now. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting because yeah, you're always encouraged to dream big, and then you're chasing and chasing and chasing. It's almost like, what is a small dream, small goal? Like I know you said on our town hall that you can easily get the wheels moving. The cost of entry is very low. The risk is low. And then you're getting that flywheel moving. That really resonated with me, and love that you shared that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, that's another one of the kind of counterintuitive principles of beginner's pluck. Again, when you get up on a stage and you're like, I'm here to tell you all today to dream small. People are like, wait, what? Because we're so used to that messaging. You want to inspire people, tell them to dream big. And it's just like, cool, tell them that. And then actually ask them how that's impacting them. And a lot of times what I found, to your point, is it just kept people feeling either like they were just in this perpetual state of like never winning and celebrating because it wasn't ever big enough or grand enough, which is just so demoralizing. Like that leads us so quickly to burnout because we might actually be accomplishing really meaningful movement, but we have this idea that like, well, but it's not that. And so it's like, if we don't have these cycles of like, I tried, I worked, I succeeded, I celebrated, these kind of mini cycles build momentum and they build confidence. But the other thing is some people just then won't ever start because they're like, well, this isn't a big dream. Like this isn't some amazing life-changing thing. And so they wait and they wait and they wait. And it creates this state of almost just like, you're just kind of in a paralyzed state of waiting. And so sometimes giving people the permission to go, like, just go dream, have a small dream, act on that dream and get some momentum and confidence and competence. And then you're exactly right. It kind of starts that flywheel of momentum, which is what we actually need to go out and then do pretty big things.
If someone were to ask you what kind of dream should they dream small, what would you say to that?
Yeah. So I would say, oh my gosh, if someone has a dream, you know, like big dream is, I want to be a New York Times bestselling author. That's a big dream. And there would be a lot that I feel like would keep somebody from waking up one day and going like, I am starting the journey of becoming a New York Times bestselling author. And then when you actually dive in, you're like, tell me more about your writing practice. Like, tell me more about like, what are you writing about? How often do you write? Where do you write? And they're like, well, I am not writing right now. Like, I don't have a book deal. And you're like, okay. So if you're literally not putting pen to paper, like instead of dreaming about being a New York Times bestselling author, what if your small dream became be a person who spends 30 minutes of uninterrupted, scheduled, protected time a day writing? And so it's like if you walk into a like cocktail party and someone's like, "Oh, what are you dreaming about? What are you working on?" You're like, "I'm working towards being a person who writes for 30 minutes a day." No one is like giving you a Nobel Peace Prize. No one's like, "No way, man. I got to introduce you to my friend. That's amazing," right? Like it's a very unimpressive thing. But actually, if you treat that small dream, here's the problem. So you go, "Well, that's a small dream. So that's not worth telling anybody or sharing. Like that's so small and unimpressive." Well, what do you do if you think your dream is small and unimpressive? You don't talk about it to other people, which means you don't like rally any support or have any level of accountability. You don't resource your dream. You don't go, okay, what am I going to sacrifice to make that happen? I'm going to put it on my calendar. What am I going to say no to? Because this dream is important enough. You don't resource it. You don't talk about it. You don't set goals towards it, which ultimately means you're probably not going to do it or be very successful at doing it. So the minute you go, okay, it's fine to have a dream to become a New York Times bestselling author, great. But can we put that on the shelf? And could you put the same level of just like energy and gusto and pride and excitement around showing up and going, I'm going to be a person who writes for 30 minutes every single day, no matter what, no matter how crazy life gets, I'm going to prioritize that time. And if you put your big dream energy that you're kind of reserving for something that will impress people, like being a New York Times bestselling author, towards your small dream of writing for 30 minutes a day, I promise you, not only will you be more successful at achieving your dream and goal of being somebody who writes for 30 minutes a day, you'll actually contribute vastly more to the likelihood that you do accomplish that big fancy dream.
That resonates with me so deeply because, and I know I keep going back into things that I didn't mention in my introduction, but I've been making music for like 15 years, and at a certain point, my dream to be this big successful artist, it kind of drowned out the purpose behind what I was
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
And once that happened, and it became this like me striving for something, like I lost the passion, I lost sight of like why I did it, and it
Yeah.
wasn't until recently where I was just like, I finally came to the conclusion like I just love making music. If nobody cares, if I'm never over there, like I feel like I do have a voice and a perspective that is fresh and new, and I do want to share it with people. But I'm not gonna be dissatisfied with my music career based off of this dream that I had that really was inspired by someone else. It wasn't really a dream that I had. It was almost just like me looking at another artist and seeing what they're doing and me wanting to emulate that.
That is so good. That is so good. And that I think having those places and spaces in our life where we get to protect them and they just get to be for the love of the thing is so important. And I think right now we've never experienced like a moment in culture or society like we're in right now, in that like everything that we do, there's an expectation that we should be able to monetize it. We should be able to get a following from it, right? It's like everything from like parenting to cooking to gardening to art, like everything is kind of like you find a spark of joy in something, and then the next kind of cultural moment or question is, how are you going to monetize that? And so I think it's so beautiful and so important. Like, listen, there are some endeavors that like won't work unless other people want them. Like you can't, it's like you're selling a widget. If people don't want the widget and they're not giving you money for the widget, their opinion really matters. It's like critical to the success of that thing. But there are so many parts of our life that we would be so well served to go like, do I need other people's approval for this thing to actually work? Or actually, is there something about is the process and the act of creating and doing and showing up, is that in and of itself the reward? I do think that counterintuitively, when we show up with that sense of like, I am doing the thing, I just wrote something on Substack, and I'm just starting to use Substack. So talk about channeling your inner beginner, right? So it's this like new platform, and I'm kind of like, what is this and how am I going to use it and kind of show up? And yesterday was a very significant day for me. It was the 4-year anniversary of a really significant life event that I went through. And so I'm just like, every year at this time of the year, I have a lot of emotions that come up. And I thought, you know what? I want to write about this. And even in my writing, and I was like, and maybe I'm going to publish it on my Substack. And I said up front, I was like, I'm about to share a story. And here's my warning to you. There's nothing in it for you. Like, there is no takeaway. There is no promise that this story is going to make your life better, or I'm not trying to sell you something or get you to click on a link or get you to be richer or better or faster or stronger or skinnier or whatever it is. I am literally doing this for me. I have a desire to process this event in my life. And I have a desire to do that in the presence of people who want to hear this story. And that is what I am embarking on. And it was so freeing, one, to just say that. And then to go, the moment I hit publish, which was this morning, I just went in, boop, click, push publish. It was like, that was the act, the kind of joy for me is over. I did the thing. I wrote it. I shared it. Like, I don't need other people's lives to be changed or for it to go like viral in order for it to be meaningful. I spent a few hours that I otherwise wouldn't have, slowing down and carving out space to articulate a very traumatic and life-changing, life-altering moment in my story. Like, that's valuable, and that is enough. And so I think kind of reclaiming and just rightly knowing, am I doing this because I need somebody to buy it? I need to make money, like, which also, that's a part of life. Like, yes, like, we have to like work and have jobs and like have other people value the thing that we're creating in the world. So that's one very valuable part of life. And ideally that really aligns with our passions and our values. And also we have to be doing things where we are creating for the sake of creating. I think it's what makes us fully human.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Justine, you're going to add something?
No. I struggle
not after that little soapbox.
Well, I struggle myself with having hobbies. So I'm like, yes, I definitely agree. And I'm like, just like, I'm getting all the motivation right now of like, okay, yes, just write or get out there or do a couple things for yourself. So
last year I picked up rollerblading because I was literally like, this is something I will never be able to make money off of. I will never be particularly good at it, but I have a hint it could be a joyful thing in my life. And that was the whole point. Like, do something that you know you won't be exceptional at and will never be able to make money off of. And it's good for my soul.
I love it.
And I think one thing about that is we rob ourselves of joy. We rob ourselves of joy when we feel like everything has to come down to money at the bottom line.
Yeah.
And like with the pivots that you made, even going to Africa, it had nothing to do with finances. You were literally, you got joy out, exactly. You got joy off of building that community, making those connections. And even with me, with my music, like I get joy out of just sharing, just there's no pressure, thank God, like no financial pressure. And it's funny because like, it's very ignorant to think you're going to just make a bunch of money off music because it's all a scam. But there's just so much joy in just releasing it and hearing people's reactions, and also like just the intimate reaction that we can have with people, whether it be just one-on-one, maybe 1-on-3 people,
Yeah.
A lot of times, like because of the age that we live in with social media, and you can have access to 100,000 people, 1 million people, we become unsatisfied if 10 people are reacting to what we're doing.
Yes. I've heard people say before too, and this kind of goes into like, okay, we do have an audience, which I don't think we always need at all. But I've heard somebody say before, it's like, if you imagine those few comments or likes or engagement as like people that are sitting in your living room, all of a sudden these numbers that we see like on the internet that feel like embarrassingly small are like, no way. Like 5 people came to like hear me read a chapter from my book or sing my song or like whatever. And they engaged with me, that can really just like change the spirit of it. But you're right. We've totally commodified, and our like numbers of what we think like is significant has just become so, it's like wildly distorted. And I think to your point, it sets up wrong expectations. But then Jeremiah, I think you're totally right. It like robs us of like the moments of actual connection that are waiting for us with other humans. Like, we created something, another human interacted with it. And that's like a profound, beautiful human experience to kind of relish in, not like despise because it's not big enough.
Yeah. That's a really good outlook.
One thing that I'll ask too, because like when you have that understanding and that definition of, success online, right? If this post gets 1,000 likes, 100 likes, when that's success and you don't get it, now you're a failure. So now I'm either not going to post anymore, or now I'm
Right.
going to just be bitter inside. So for you, what do you think is a healthy way to establish what success means in your life?
Oh my gosh. How much time do we have left? Okay. This is a doozy question for me because I spent a lot of time thinking about it, and I want to share two things. The first is just knowing that you will never feel a sense of like, I did the thing and therefore I don't have any bad feelings in my body or life about what I'm doing. And I say that I was just sharing with a friend on Marco Polo. Do y'all use the Marco Polo app?
No, sounds familiar
Okay.
though.
Life changing. You basically just like leave videos for your friends. So it's like asynchronous communication, but so you can play it whenever you want, but you're leaving video messages back and forth. It's my favorite tool to cultivate long distance relationships. So I'm Marco Poloing with a friend, and I'm sharing about just like, I'm in this funk and I'm feeling angsty about this. And like, I don't really know, maybe some like imposter syndrome stuff. And she messaged me back and she was like, wow, it was so good for me and my heart to hear you like process where you're at right now. And she's like, and here's why. Because I'm a few stages ahead of her. We kind of have similar career paths, but I'm further ahead. I've done things that she hasn't done. I am acknowledged and compensated in a way that she is not for the work that I do, right? Like I'm several stages ahead. And she's like, I have those feelings, but I have this idea that if I were to do the things that you've done and gotten the results that you've gotten, I would no longer feel those things. And so by hearing me say like, no, like I've done all of those things, I've gotten those, and it's like, don't hear me say like, I'm really grateful for the benefit and for how that's enriched my life. And also I still have days where I'm like, getting all twisted up in my head or shame spiraling about something I have or haven't done or accomplished. And like, it's not your accomplishments don't fix, like you're trying to fix a soul problem with like an external success problem. And both of those are valuable problems to solve. Like, it's like, it's great to just have like, I think worldly ambitions of things you want to do and create and impact that you want to make. Where we get real twisted up is when we think this soul problem will be fixed with this success problem. And so that was just like such a meaningful interaction. And it was helpful for me to go, oh, what are the ways that you do that? Like if only you have done this, or this, you probably wouldn't feel that way. And so it just brought me to my own moment of kind of self-reflection. I also believe that moment that I had with my friend is like why sharing our experiences and our internal life is so valuable and so important, right? Because if every time I chat with my friend, I'm just kind of like, she's like, how are things going for you? And I'm like, amazing. I mean, have you been seeing what I'm doing in the world? Everything is awesome. Like I am LTD, living the dream over here, babe. It only goes to reinforce her like, okay, I'll keep hustling. And then once I reach where she's at, like I will, my problems will be gone. And so by authentically and by cultivating relationships that are marked by transparency and honesty and authenticity, where we show up not just with the bright and shiny, but also with the real, like, here's what I'm actually really struggling with today. It is just such a gift to one another. So that was my first thought. I will pause for anybody who would like to share before I go on to my second thought and start my second TED Talk.
Well, the only other thing I wanted to add on that is actually that's why I love the food service hospitality industry, because I feel like every day I like show up as myself and tell people my story. And then all of a sudden I have these like instantly incredibly deep relationships and friendships that are so authentic. And I just feel like coming from tech to food service hospitality and working for Prosper is like, oh, okay, like who I actually am is like building both like long friendships, but my business as well. So it is one of those things. Like I just actually I went to a conference in Nashville, met with the CMO of Freddy's, Aaron. And it's like, now we're sending each other pictures of our lizards back and forth. And you're just like, in what industry is sending a picture of a lizard, accomplishing business goals? But that's where I just think this industry is so fun, because you actually can be your authentic self and bond with people. Just yesterday, actually, I was on the call with a guy who had a daughter, twin daughters, and then a son. I myself have a daughter, twin daughters, and a son. And then my next call was a girl who had a daughter and then twin daughters. So I'm like, what are the odds? And it's just so great to be able to like open up about your life. And then that really sparks, you know, the true connections.
I love that.
I feel like one thing that you guys are both kind of touching on, appreciation is so important, because when you have appreciation and contentment for where you are in life, you're not going to be looking for external sources to kind of gauge where you are. You know,
Yeah.
I went to Mexico a couple months ago, and the one thing that I realized is like they live in their own cultural bubbles. Whereas like if you're not on social media, you don't even know
Mm.
that there's like Maseratis or Bugattis, or like when you're like just enjoying your life and you're doing what you have to do, living out your passion, all that stuff is meaningless. And now your success becomes, okay, cool. I just want to wake up. We have a farm. We're going to take care of the cows, the chickens, all that kind of things. And I feel like with social media and a lot of motivational speakers, they kind of like hype up this world that's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, look, I got a Bugatti, or I have this Lambo truck, or look at me, look at my wife who, she's built like something that God didn't build, like you see all these different things, and it
Yeah,
causes you to compare yourself.
totally.
So now you have a wife, for a man, right? You have a wife, you have kids who love you, but you're looking at this other guy because his wife is a superstar. She's just crushing it. She's doing all these things seemingly online. So now you're discontent with the marriage that you're in. And I feel
Yeah,
like that's kind of like this big problem that we have in our society, which is just the comparing
yeah,
ourselves to what we see on our phones. And I think, like you said, it's really great that you had that honest conversation with your friend, because it does allow her to recalibrate just her idea of success.
yeah,
And
yeah,
and one last thing I'll share is, a couple years ago, I was in this rap battle and I lost, right? And in my head, if I won that rap battle and I got that prize money and I got that notoriety, my life was going to change.
yeah.
And I lost. I met the guy who beat me like 2 weeks
Yeah,
ago.
yeah,
And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm actually doing a lot better than he is doing. Like, as far as like just financially, stability wise. And also, he told me it wasn't all that what it was cut out to be.
yeah,
It was great to have that conversation, even though like I've already been through this journey of like, putting everything back into perspective. But just, I think it's so true. Like, some people who you look up to, you don't realize that, one, they're looking up to somebody else.
right.
Two, you're never going to have enough of anything. So unless you're content and you find peace now, you're not going to have peace when you get whatever you think was going to
Yeah.
be the reward.
And it changes the spirit, like with my friend, I think people get scared because there's this sense that if you're content, you won't be ambitious. And we kind of pit those two things. I think that we've created a false dichotomy between contentment and ambition. It's not that you're going to stop building and creating if you're content. I actually just think it's like the spirit of which you are building and creating. If you were someone who was created to build and create, the spirit is really different. And I say that being like, and we can't always tell that from the outside, because you might just see somebody like going after it, and they are going after their goals. What we don't know is like, are they going after their goals because out of a striving, like I'm striving for the next thing, I'm striving for the next external validator, like I'm striving to get somebody else to tell me that I matter and I'm worthy and I'm good enough. So it's like they're both running. Okay, so I'm like picturing two people just like in a race and they're running. One is striving, and then the other one is going like, I am so full. I am so full of idea and life and motivation and passion and a desire to make an impact in the world. Like, I am running this race. They both look the same on the outside. Only you can know. Like, am I chasing after something that I'm probably never going to get? Or am I running because I was made to be a runner and because I have all of this fuel and energy? And so, like with my friend who was like, well, if I would have done this, this, and this, I would have thought I wouldn't have these insecurities. What I didn't tell her was, no, yeah, no, I still do. So don't even bother doing this, this, or this. What I said to her was, do this if you feel like you have a message to share and a fire in your belly. Do this if you feel like, regardless of whether or not it's successful or well received, you will wake up the morning you finish that and go like, job well done. I'm so proud of you for putting that into the universe. I'm so proud of the work that you did. You feel like you became better and more creative and stronger. Like, if that's the spirit that will accompany you doing this hard thing, do it. If you're just going to do that thing because you think that once you do that thing, you won't ever feel insecure or have any doubts or like have bad days, like, don't do the thing. That is a false That is a false promise. So I do just think it's important that it's like being content doesn't mean once I achieve contentment, I won't do anything in the world. I think it's just actually one, what you will create and build will be done with a different spirit. And I also think it will probably be done in a way that is much healthier and more sustainable, because you can also only sustain striving for so long. It's like, I think the people that go out and build really meaningful things and have a long faithfulness towards a thing are actually, and stay healthy in the process, are the ones that aren't striving. They're building out of a sense of like overflow and an act of like, I want to serve, I want to create, I want to bring this thing into the world, which actually keeps them much more healthy and sustained in the process of the journey.
Like what you're saying is like it's resonating so deeply with me because I was talking to my brother the other day. So I've been married twice. My first marriage, literally all the good qualities about me, I turned those to use it to strive to get this woman to love me. For 3 years, it never worked. For 3 years to the very end, it never worked. And then the essence of who I was, it was tainted and it was shifted of, I'm a nice guy, but I'm going to be nice so that you can love me more, so that you can do this for me. Trying to use these characteristics as manipulation.
Yeah.
And the other day I was talking to my current wife, who is amazing. And all the qualities that she said that she loved about me are things that I just naturally am. It's like, I'm just naturally just kind. I'm naturally thoughtful. I naturally just want to, make her happy. It's not, it was so funny because I like look at who I was 10 years ago versus now. And like, everything is just from such a pure place of this is who God created me to be. And I'm going to be this, whether you like me or not. Thank God she loves it about me. But I just see that the difference. And it's like something that you're chasing and that you want and that you're desiring, you're striving for. A lot of times, like if it's shifting your motive and it's shifting your heart, you probably should stop chasing it and figure out, or just take inventory, figure out what really matters, who you really are, and just be that. So I really love what you just said.
So good. Take inventory. I think that's just really wise. And so many of us, it's not rocket science. It is just slowing down and kind of being intentional and really being able to articulate, what I think one of the most powerful questions anybody can ask is like, what does success look like to you? Not what do you think it will look like according to your parents, according to your boss, according to your high school girlfriends, but deep down, when the still small voice inside of you, when you quiet enough of the outside noise and getting very crystal clear on like, this is what actually matters to me. And I take this so far, like I'm kind of like a little bit ridiculous about it. I did that. I literally did that. And then I started a spreadsheet and I was like, it's kind of wild to me that like all of the visible metrics for how I show up in the world, my business, my company, all of this stuff, it really all comes down to kind of like numbers, right? That's like the main way that we like measure success, whether that's viewership, followers, revenue, customers. It's like, that's fine, because in order to create my mission in the world, I do need those things. But I need some numbers that actually also that are more holistically representative of what I say I care about. And so I went through and I'm like, what does a successful life look like for you? Not just in how much money you make or how big this is or how successful that was, but in the moments of like, how much time are you spending with your friends? How much time are you spending in your marriage? How much unplugged intentional time are you spending with your kids? How many moments of just like creativity did you create for yourself this week? And I started this spreadsheet. I call it Liz's Life in Numbers. And literally every day, in addition to like, how many hours did I spend working on this project? How much money did I make off of that? Like I have my like, normal columns that get measured. And then I also have a column where like to the 0.25 of an hour, I track my time and my energy and the numbers, because I'm like, these 4 columns, if I slay in those 4 columns, but these 9 columns get rejected, I promise you at the end of my journey, I will not feel like I was successful. The world might look at me and say, dang, she was successful. But in this still small part of my own heart, I will know I failed deeply. But if I want to live a life of purpose, I have to do it on purpose. And there has to be an intentionality around it. And I want my numbers to actually add up to like what I say I care about. And it's given me just like a totally different way to like look at my life and like celebrate. Was this day, this week, this month, this quarter a success? Isn't just about, you know, how much money I made or how successful these initiatives were in the marketplace, but it really is this holistic picture of my life and how I showed up for myself and others.
That's incredible.
Yes, it is.
And nerdy.
Wow,
It's
I love
okay.
that.
Yes,
And
it is a
also
whole
really
nother
nerdy.
level. But that,
Wow.
I mean, if that's what works for you too, like you're owning that. And it's like, what do they say? What doesn't get measured doesn't get done, or whatever
Something
that
like
saying
that.
is. Yeah.
That is exactly the spirit that I'm going
Yes.
off after. Yes.
Yeah. Good for you. And plus you get to celebrate the small wins again.
Totally.
Of like,
Yeah.
okay, these columns maybe aren't off the charts, but these columns were, or,
Yeah.
you know, especially being like a working mom or working parent of like, okay, today at work wasn't great, but you know, I got extra time with my kids, or I put them to sleep, or just different areas to be like, well, I worked out today. That is a win.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
celebrating
Absolutely.
those small wins.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's so great. Is that something that you do often, Justine? Do you celebrate your small wins?
I try to. I really like a schedule. I like consistency, like predictability. So I think like for me, having a schedule of like, okay, I block out the calendar, like I'm driving the kids to school. I have to do that till 9, or I'm doing this. And then I'm going to go to the gym. I put in my drive time. I put in the workout, the drive time back. So everything gets very detail oriented and scheduled. And when I do that, like that's a win. I also am a to-do list person, list it all out, like hit that checkbox, like that in itself is a celebration of. So definitely for me, it's like, okay, great. Yeah, these things got accomplished today. Or it's just almost like Liz's methodology of like, okay, if you step back from the day, we all know that hours can seep away so quickly. But if you're measuring it, or have, for me, it's my to-do list and the blocked hours, like, yes, I got to go to the gym, or I got, you know, this number of check marks on my to-do list, like that is a success for me in the day. And then that's how I celebrate.
That's good. So I think the last thing that I would love to talk about is just these pluck up moments. Do you have a little bit more time, or
You know what? I just looked at the calendar to see, or looked at the time, and I don't have my calendar pulled up to see if I have a hard stop. Hold on. Let me see if I do. I have a bad habit of.
I know, going too long.
I know.
Yeah.
I had a call with Liz the other day, and she was like, "Okay, sorry, I have to go by." I'm like, "Oh, but." See.
I'm so sorry. Okay, I do. It's with a colleague that I can get like 5 more minutes from, though, if I need to. Yeah. Let me send a message real quick. And then but I'll have to pop off in about 5 minutes.
Perfect.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah,
well, we can start wrapping it up anyways, but
let's wrap it up.
Okay.
But I just love the idea of redefining success and making that on your terms. And the one thing that you've done throughout your career, from what I'm hearing, is like being successful in every stage of your pivot. You know, you set out to get your degree in journalism, you got it. And then the next stage, you set out to help the girls in those communities. You did that. And then the next stage, you know, there's always this constant evolution. And I feel like that's something that we can all learn and grow from, which is understanding and being honest with what your goal is today, and then giving yourself grace next year to have a new goal.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, thank you. That's really encouraging. I think probably the thing that I honestly feel most proud of is like, yes, they were successful in the ways that the world would measure success. But I think what feels more important to me was maintaining my view of success, and really, and which for me, so much of it comes down to like the health of the relationships that I've been gifted with, to go like, not everything that I've tried has worked, for sure. Like I've experienced failure. I've tried things that didn't come to fruition, but I can live with that. Like that feels like a natural part of the kind of entrepreneurial, creative, like going off the beaten path. Like that's part of the journey. I think what feels most deeply satisfying to me is going, but you never sacrificed relationships for the sake of getting to the next level of success. And that is what's most meaningful to me, because what that means is when I'm successful, I feel like I have people to share in the joy and who want to celebrate with me because I brought them along for the journeys, not just the highlights, but also the struggle. And then when I am a failure, when I have done something that doesn't work, I feel like that is not where my worth or my belonging comes from. Like I've cultivated relationships with people who could give two toots about my metrics over here. Like what they care about is like, is Liz healthy and alive and becoming more of who she's created to be? And to me, that is what is actually successful. It's less about the success of the project or the thing and more about the success of the whole and kind of the like quality of the journey itself.
Mic drop. I love it. Well, this has been such a great conversation with both of you guys. Thank you for being on the Prosper Brief.
I know. I feel like I just got like a full therapy session from both of you. I'm like, okay, my inspirational speakers, like, thank you. I'm not sure what I added, but I took a lot away. So thank you so much.
Likewise. I feel the same. So thanks so much for inviting me into the space. And I can't wait to be with more of this community in a few months.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the Prosper Brief on your favorite podcast platform. We'll see you next time here on the Prosper Brief.